Hey, Lee Robinson here at American Sentinel K9. Today we're going to talk about the proper chain setup. Now these add-a-links that I bought to put in my chain are a little bit on the large side. So I'm going to have to sand them down a little bit. You could use a file or you could just buy one that fits. I like to get a add-a-link the same strength or higher than my chain so I don't have a weak link in my chain. So these are a little bit on the big side and I got to take a little bit off the threads. Now I don't have to take much off, and some people might say, well, you just weakened your threads. Not really. This is a larger link, so there's still a lot of thread left. And I just took off a little bit on the edge so I can slip this through the chain. Also, it kind of burrs it a little bit, which will help it from backing off. So let's go out. Here we are going to do some updates to an old chain spot. The old chain spot, when the dog runs in a circle, the part that's closest to the dog gets worn out. And I've heard people say that my dog broke their chain. He's so strong. Well, no, it's impossible. A logging chain is strong enough to rip a dog in half, okay? So no dog is going to break a logging chain. What they can do is wear one out. And if you wear one out, when they run this circle over and over again, dirt is like sandpaper. And so it's slowly sanding on that metal. And if that dog's running circles every day, after 6 months, something like that, the chain will start to get worn out and you need to continually update. Since this is a repair, this is going to include everything that's done in an initial chain setup and then a little bit of extra information, because the dogs don't actually wear out the first 5 or 8 feet of the chain. It's the last 8 feet that they wear out as they run a circle, because the inner parts of the circle are only being drug a little bit, but the outer parts of the circle are covering much more area. And as that chain gets drug across that ground works like sandpaper, and it sands that chain to a smaller diameter. And then also where the links overlap, dirt gets in between the links and it rubs back and forth, and that creates a pressure point that mills out or sands away the strength of the chain. And so a neglected chain can fail. So at the beginning of the video, you saw me grind down the outside edges of the threads here so it would fit through the loop. And this one still barely fits in, but it fits. You saw me kind of wiggle it there. Now I could go with a smaller link, and this one would fit without any problems. But the reason why I don't is this one has a breaking strength of around 1,760 pounds, and this one is about 2,600 pounds. So this one's almost 1,000 pounds more than that one. And so I like to use the heavier link. Now, next, we add our swivel. When I add the swivel, make sure that you pay attention to the bolt head. The bolt head should go on towards the chain. You want the smooth side with as much space as possible on the dog side. Okay, then you'll tighten that up. Now this one here may be burred a little bit. Well, it looks like the sandpaper did not burr it much. So what I'm gonna do is next, I'm actually just gonna lay it down, and I'm gonna intentionally add some burrs to those threads. All right, now why? Because I don't want this thing to swivel too easily. It still went on pretty easy. It's getting a little snug there at the end. The next thing I add is a screwdriver. It's gonna have to go this way. And I'm gonna over tighten this so it will not come loose on its own tension, accidentally. And I'm gonna over tighten it a little bit. All right, now that's not gonna come off after it's been on here for like 6 months and got rust in it. You'll probably have to use a bolt cutter to take that off. Next, these snap links This is a good way to have a dog get off and cause trouble in the neighborhood. So do not use these unless you use 2 of them. And if you use 2 of them, you want to make sure one snap is on one side and then the other snap is on the other side. So now here you can see that I've got a snap on opposite sides. So one is on the left and one is on the right. That way the dog is not able to open this snap because the solid side over here holds that one closed and the solid side on this link holds the other one closed, okay? Then this will be very secure. You could also use a really heavy bull snap, or you could just put an O-ring on here, but if you use an O-ring, you'll have to add another add-a-link for that O-ring, and then once you get the O-ring, you can run the dog's collar through the O-ring. Since I like to take my dogs off of the chain spots occasionally, I don't like to use an O-ring because the only way to take the dog off is to remove the collar. I don't want to have to remove the collar. So this is how I set up the dog end of my chain. It swivels because of this large swivel, and the bolt is in here. If you have the bolt on this side, it's pretty common to see these get knotted up in the bolt, and then next thing you know, you have a knot, and it's kind of difficult to deal with. I want to make sure that the dog can reach the water bowl and the doghouse from the center of the chain spot. So that dog's neck, the dog's neck should be able to go to at least the center of the doghouse. That's going to put his head and nose to the back. Then we're going to take the old chain and do the same thing. And this is going to allow me to find my line. And I'm going to basically draw a line like that. I know my axle is going to be somewhere on here. Now I've already pre-measured it and I know it's right there. How do I do that? I don't just do it this direction. So now we're going to come 90 degrees from there to over here. All right, and I see I'm a little far. I need to back up because this is the collar. The front legs and the head will be out further. So I'm going to pull this back to about there on my rainbow crescent that I drew from over here. So now I know that I'm good that way and I'm good this way. So this is where the head of the chain needs to be. And I just dig a small hole. Now you'll notice I already have an add-a-link right here, but this is a renovation. If I had a brand new chain, I would only have one add-a-link here and one at the other end where I connected my swivel. So I'd only have 2, but this is a repair, and so I'm gonna still need 2. I'm gonna leave this one alone. It is in fine condition. These things, this link here is not gonna wear out. It might rust out in 15 years, but we're checking these every 6 months or so. Every three to 6 months. I'm gonna tap it right there. And lay that there. Then I gotta grab my sledge. Just stay over here. Now I oftentimes will use a tractor to push this down, but I figure most people don't have a tractor, and this is how I used to do it. Now you'll notice that last tap didn't have that ting sound. When it's tight, it's not going to vibrate. What I pounded in the ground is a truck axle. If you cannot find a truck axle, that's fine, not a big deal. Just go to Home Depot or Lowe's and get you a bag of concrete. Put you a set of sticks and an X. Take your chain, tie a knot in the end of it, and drop it down in the center of the hole. After you drop it in the center of the hole, wrap your chain around the 2 sticks. Then fill the hole with concrete. All right, and then, but you want to put your chain in first, wrap it around the sticks, and then put your concrete in. You could put the sticks on last as long as you have somebody hold the chain up. And then those sticks will keep your chain in the center while the concrete sets. Now when you do that, don't use your typical size chain. Get a really large one, because you're only going to need like a foot sticking out of the ground. And then after you have a foot of that sticking out of the ground, that'll be what you tie the dog chain onto, because that chain is going to wear out and it's going to be really difficult to pull that concrete out. So you want that to last you basically 50 years. So use like at least a 3/8 inch chain if you're going to do the concrete, only for the first foot. And then you can connect to that with your add-a-links and a smaller chain for the dog to live on. I have one set up like that with the concrete up by the house that's been there for 20 years. Okay, now just pack that in. Okay, and now your chain is secure. Now if you had a brand new chain, you would be done. I don't. So we're going to show you why I'm repairing this chain. Now, like I said, the first 5 feet or so, no problem. So here's our old links, and you can see at the swivel, again, the bolt's not here, the bolt's on the inside, but look how loose that is, right? That swivel is still nowhere near coming loose. And if you're observant, even though it's got a lot of play in it, the head of the bolt is still way bigger than the hole. It's not coming out anytime soon. But what is happening is, notice the end of the loop. It's getting worn out. Now it's still plenty wide, and this could probably last another month or so. But look at here, that was getting really low. All right, now I had a small dog on it, so I actually didn't mind because I knew the dog was not going to break this. But it is certainly time to repair this, because look how thin it's getting. All right, so you can see that. And now look at the links. Also, the links are not full thickness on the ends. They're being worn. And as you go up the chain, they're starting to look a little better. Okay, so this one's not as bad. And right around here, they're almost full size. So I'm going to come back to about right here where these two meet, and I'm going to cut this link about right here, because that's where it starts to be almost full size. Now you can see it's still not full size, but this does not move as much, and so because it doesn't move as much, this wears much slower than that out there is going to wear. So I'm going to take my bolt cutters and cut right here, right there. This is high tensile strength chain. I do not use the weak chain that you can buy at some places. Your local co-op or Home Depot should have that. As far as I'm concerned, all this is scrap metal. I have no use for that, it's too weak. Now, I take my new link that I added, or that I milled on, so it'll fit. It fits there, and here, it also fits. Then I just burr my thread slightly. Because I don't want that coming off. It'll still probably go on just fine. It's getting a little tough. Put my screwdriver in. And I like to do a couple of twists because I don't want to be concerned about this ever getting loose. All right, and that's secure. So now, I didn't have to buy as much chain. You might think, why not replace the whole thing? Well, this high tensile strength chain is about $3 a foot. So that saves me 18 bucks. And when you have a bunch of them, it adds up. So now, final check. We come to the end of it. And I'm gonna do a walk around. Dog can reach the water. Dog can reach the doghouse. Dog cannot reach another dog. Okay? And so that's how you properly set up a chain spot. Now, one other thing I should mention. The dog should not be able to go behind the doghouse or behind the water bowl, because then they're gonna just knock things over. So that's how you set it up. Y'all have a blessed day.